Let's take a look at record sets because this is where all the magic happens for Azure DNS. And I just want to remind you again that you don't create individual records, you create record sets, which can just contain a single record or multiple records. And the first thing you're going to need to do is name your record. And it's not like naming other services because it's all about your domain. So the first thing is that you can provide a name to the record, such as www, and to you that would look like a subdomain. That's how I would describe it. But that would also be known as a fully qualified domain because you're completing the domain. So I just want you to remember that. Now you can also provide no name, and when it's left empty, that's now considered either apex or naked domain. You can also provide a wildcard. This acts as a catch-all, meaning that anything that gets passed along is going to get captured here. So the priority really does matter here as well. But you can also not only just do an asterisk, you can do an asterisk.trek. So if you just want a subset of things being matched, you can do that. Not all DNS providers or services that manage DNS for you support that, but Azure does. Then there's this @ symbol. This represents a shorthand for saying origin. It's basically you saying I'm pointing to the naked domain or the zone that is hosting the domain. And so you'll see that in some of the default records if you're just wondering what that is. Another thing you can set on your record set is the time to live. This is going to tell you, or this is going to tell other servers requesting your domain how long it should cache the record so it doesn't need to frequently ask what to do or for asking for the same information over and over again. And so you can either set a long TTL or a short TTL. The longer it is, generally the more it's going to reduce costs. I don't know what costs it's going to reduce, but I know that it would. I guess I'm just not working at scale, so I'm not too sure about that. But the idea is that, if it's longer, then there's going to be a lot less requests hitting the DNS. Now, you can set a short one, and you might want to do this if that your records are changing frequently or you need failover. So if you're using a record for failover, what you want is you want your TTL to be very low, because if it's set to like an hour or a day, that means that it has to wait till your servers or that the server that has the cache expires so that the failover can occur. So be really careful with that. Let's talk about the details of the actual record types. This is the meat of your actual record because it's really going to tell it how it's going to work. And we have a lot ones here, and we're going to actually cover them all. Starting at the top here with A, which stands for address. This allows you to point your domain to an IPv4 address. Then you have 4As. This lets you point your domain to an IPv6 address. Then you have CAA. This is for certificate authorities. These are records authorized who can issue certificates for their domain. I assume it has to do with something with SSL certificates. I'm not sure. Then you have CNAMEs. These are canonical name records. These create an alias from one domain to another, so you can set the record value to a domain. So imagine you wanted www.exampro.co to go to freecodecamp.org. Then the value would be freecodecamp.org with the actual www and CNAME there. Then you have MX records. These are mail exchange records. So if your domain, if you have like a custom email that has your domain, so like andrew@exampro.co, the idea is that you need MX records in order for that to work. Then you have NS, which stands for name server records. This identifies multiple DNS servers for the domain, and there are multiples in case the primary DNS server fails. Then you have PTR, which stands for pointer, and these are used to point a domain or host name, but it's used for reverse DNS lookup. So it's just like a record, but the difference is that it's for reverse DNS lookup. Then you have SRVs. This is a service record, and it's used to identify computers that host specific services, like locating domain controllers for Active Directory. So we see a little bit more of this utility when we're working with Azure or Microsoft workloads. And then you got TXT, and this is a record that is just text and can serve multiple purposes, such as documentation or as a means of verification. I'll give you an example for verification. Imagine you want to use Gmail, and so Gmail says, how do we know you own the domain? So go create a TXT record, and then we'll go check and see if you put in the value we gave you, and that's how we're going to verify that you own that domain. There's one more here. I don't believe it's something you can set, but it's something that you should always have, which is a start of authority. This record contains administrative details about the domain. All right. One more thing, last thing about record sets is that you can set your own special record type, you can set Azure's own special record type called Alias, and this works with either the 4As or the CNAME record. And the idea here is that I'm going to set that, and then I'm going to actually choose an Azure resource. So instead of saying go to this IP address or go to this hostname, I'm saying go to this very specific service. Why would you want to do that? And the reason you want to do that is, imagine that let's say you weren't doing that. Let's say you just had like a load balancer, and you're directly pointing to its host name. And for whatever reason, you deployed a new version of that service or something like that, and now its host name has changed. And what could happen is that you could be left with a domain or a domain record that is dangling. It's pointing to nowhere, and so what you'd have to do is manually update it. But if you use this alias feature, you wouldn't have to do that. It would just always point to the right place. So whatever is being utilized underneath, whether it's an IP address or a host name, the point is that Azure always knows how to find it. And so that is the power of Alias. And if you can use Alias, you should always 100% use it. So there you go.